Hey, hi everyone. I just want to take a second and say congratulations to everyone who's already presented. You all have done an amazing job. And I'm happy to introduce our panel, Transforming Education for a Brighter Future. I'm Demetra Biddle. This is Jenna Kelser, Angel Padilla, and Brian Wagenaar.
So why does education need transforming? Well, traditional education oftentimes can be very rigid and inflexible in nature. You know, it has a top-down structure to it. It's based around theory, it's based around lectures, and it oftentimes takes place in a classroom. And we can see, you know, with our little cartoon there, you know, it doesn't encourage creativity. It doesn't encourage students to ask questions. And it oftentimes takes place, you know, indoors and prevents students from having experiences that can really bind them to the natural world and get outside and form a connection to these spaces that's going to lead them to want to conserve them long term. And it's also not inclusive of different perspectives. You know, the top-down nature of traditional education systems, you know, it doesn't really set up systems to question and to go against, you know, some of the social inequalities. So all these different, you know, factors that they play into the fact that traditional education is not suited to prevent or to prep students for a changing world and to deal with really complex problems like climate change and social inequality. So now Jenna is going to talk a little bit more about traditional education and some of the shortfalls.
So in our society, there's a huge disconnect of people from nature and the world around them. In a traditional system of education, this is perpetuated and it really fuels the capitalist system that has caused climate change. These by-the-book methods disassociated us from the world and created a lack of creativity and compassion for the natural world and others. An interdisciplinary approach to education increases students' resiliency and expands students' viewpoints on how systems interact. This creates ecologically conscious students that can consider different systems when making decisions in academia and beyond.
If we want to move education for a brilliant future, we need to work and focus on many concepts. As an example, places, experience, and participation. With place-based education, we can engage the participant on their environment, on their community, or with a place or with a team that represent a value, allowing to get opportunities and solutions for what really means. Additionally, if we use participatory education, we can obtain and promote inclusivity and democracy, giving equal opportunities to all the participants to motivating them to get involved. As well, using experiential learning, we can engage the participant and connect with the hands-on experience to apply for the real world.
So thank you again for coming to our panel, and I'm happy to pass the mic off to Brian, who's going to talk about how he reinvigorated top of the world news.
Yeah, so I'm Brian, and this is my project entitled Getting Back to the Top of the World, Environmental Communication and Reinvigorating the Student Voice at Western. So some of you may recall, if you were here last August, I was originally setting off on a different project with Citizens for a Healthy Community, which is a nonprofit in Delta County that fights oil and gas development. And I was also going to be doing some climate planning for them. But ultimately, I decided that I wanted to stay closer to Western and come back and do a project on campus. So I started with this photo as my official profile photo. So I thought I'd go out with it as well. But in August of 2021, I met with Professor Tony Todd, who teaches communications here at Western. And she said that they were looking for an editor and I was interested in the position. It'd be kind of like a side gig, like, you know, 8 to 10 hours a week. And that's leaving that meeting. I thought it was an interview. It was really me becoming TOP's first ever editor by default. But I was essentially tasked with reviving the student newspaper, And, that started with assembling the dream team. And something that I spent a lot of time doing was recruiting people to write for Top, to edit, to take photos, and, sending GP emails through Brianna, and, trying to get people on board. And we were able to assemble a really great staff of about 12 people. And so that's from our team photo last week. But we really were able to hit the ground running with this project and this newspaper endeavor. And we just hit 200 posts on our website for the year this morning. And that's all sorts of stuff. It's articles, it's features, it's creative pieces, it's photo essays. There's a little something for everyone on the website. And, people are starting to take notice. We've had over 1,100 unique visitors to our website in just the last month. And one of the coolest things I've been able to do is talk to a lot of the people in this program about the work that they're doing in this valley, and really tie that into kind of some of the more broad environmental issues and themes. So projects about wildfire, farming, habitat conservation, recreation, some of these things that we've talked about a ton in our program. I've also been able to do some like local business highlights, talking to people from Packed Outdoors, Sheepfly, Campfire Ranch, and really learning about how they're integrating sustainability into their business models and how that is helping them move forward as successful businesses. And most of these businesses have very close ties either to Western or to the ICE Lab. So it's been great to learn more about kind of how they function on a day-to-day basis. And then finally, stuff really close to home. Some of the research that students are doing up at Rumble is really cool, of salamanders and wildflowers. The Western Solar Society and Equitable Solar Solutions. I was able to profile them and some of the work that they're doing with Habitat for Humanity and here on campus. And then, some of the other stuff like Mariah doing some snow science in March up in, I believe it was Taylor Park. So I kind of break my project out into 3 different kind of aspects or focuses. There's kind of the management, guiding the team of 8 to 10 people. And really what I learned there is it's all about flexibility and being flexible in timelines and in scope with personnel, being willing to alter plans and it really encouraging student passions. Like, we didn't assign anyone like particular stories or photos. We let them decide what they wanted to do. And, I think that really produced some amazing results. And then you got to be willing to let go of specific projects or things that, are not working out and transition. And then on the writing side, I was able to write about 90 different pieces of various, length, and some would say quality, but it's kind of an eternal balance between, the speed. Obviously you want to produce stuff as quickly as possible, the accuracy, the length, are people really going to read this 3,500 word feature about farming, no matter how cool it is? But also the importance of photography and how that can really bring people into your work. And we've been able to have a team of 3 photographers that have done some fantastic work for us. And, I think I owe a few people here in the audience specific feature stories. So it's important to be ambitious, but it's also important to be realistic about what you can accomplish. And there's tons of stuff that I would like to get into this summer. Finally, there's the interviewing component. And obviously it's important to do your research before you interview people, but it's also important to be flexible. You come in with a plan, but it takes as long as it takes. And there are certain people, some people at MEM perhaps, you can ask them 2 questions and 2 hours later, you're talking about some tangentially related topic. And it's all great stuff, but you're gonna have to cut that down to something readable at the end of the day. But there's always a push and pull with the interviews and with this work. Sometimes you have to like extract information out of people and sometimes they just are very flowy about it. And so you just have to be able to read those situations. The thing I'm probably most excited about coming out of my project is this magazine that you may have seen floating around the University Center. I think it's out in the little concession space, but we kind of conceived of this in October. We produced this kind of annual review magazine, and it was originally going to be 28 pages and was supposed to be done by I think it was originally intended to be a semester review, and a return to top of the world, which it was, but it kept expanding. The deadline kept moving back, and I was able to go pick up about 280 copies from Montrose at 5 a.m. on Wednesday. So that was really exciting to be able to put those out yesterday. So go pick one up if you can. But all the thanks in the world go to Caspin and to Ilsa for their impeccable design work. So what's on deck for the summer? Well, I'm going to be continuing to work on top of the world stuff, hopefully doing some work with advertisers, recruiting, succession planning, establishing best practices, and trying to make sure that the newspaper will continue to be strong moving forward. And then also building relationships here on campus. The honors program, the local newspapers, other programs on campus that could help us out, creative writing, business, art, and really fostering some of these relationships that I think will make the paper stronger. So what could top of the world be if we look out into the future? Everybody has a podcast now, so I feel like top of the world eventually should get one, even if it's not this summer. But weekly newsletters are also a great way to invite people into your journalism and to really put it in front of them on a regular basis. You can also return to more regular printing, more like newsy style stuff in addition to magazines. We could incorporate journalism back into the Western curriculum, which would be a great way to expand our staff. And we've also had a really exciting opportunity to be invited to this Colorado campus newspaper network and potentially collaborate with these different universities. I think it's Denver University, Colorado College, and a couple others. And we could potentially work on like statewide policy stories and things that impact all colleges in Colorado. So in terms of stories for this summer, I have a few ideas. I have about 35 ideas, but these are just a few. So covering camping developments in Gunnison Valley is a really interesting thing, how people are dealing with increasing recreation, doing some coverage of local politics, potentially from an environmental vantage. Updating on the housing projects is one of the things that I would have liked to have covered this year, but we just didn't have the capacity quite yet. The story that nobody asked for, kind of an explainer feature on the Gunnison Landfill. And then lastly, just kind of profiling the ecological restoration work in the valley, which will have some great photo opportunities with HICA and some other organizations doing all sorts of cool stuff. So these are just a few of my favorite stories. Caspin wrote one. It's I think it's the very first thing in our magazine about violent crime on campus and kind of the culture around residents' life and safety here. Courtney King, a recent alum, wrote a story about her experience on the Pacific Crest Trail, which I think is really amazing. And finally, Rachel Hoy wrote a fantastic piece, basically outlining some of the shortfalls at Western regarding the queer community. And then shout out to Rebecca Breezemore. We were able to do a lot of like profiling and coverage of the presidential search forums and these things when this is going on a couple months ago. And she was a huge help in that. So this is just my like 8-second pitch for top of the world for any MEMers out there or anybody else, students interested in writing or editing or taking photos, please reach out to me. Finally, we got some thank yous, 3 different MEM mentors. We're on like project plan F at this point, but Dr. Coop, Dr. Clark, and Karen have been fantastic and have helped me a lot and been very patient when I needed them. Amazing top of the world team. Specific thank you to Caspin, Matthew, Claire, and Ilsa, Professor Tony Todd for looping me into this madness, and all my gracious interviewees, especially the ones early in the process where I probably wasn't very good at doing interviews. And final thank you just to anyone who actually reads this stuff. And then just a little bit of fun we were able to have on April Fools. Questions? My rough plan is to stay on it in some capacity through like July and just kind of do some transition and close some things out. And I was telling someone the other day that at this point it's become like extreme volunteerism with the nature of our of our limited budget at top. The payment stuff isn't an issue because I'm not getting paid anymore. So I'm just going to continue through July and then hand it over to the team.
Don't forget to repeat the question.
The question was, am I going to become like the eternal editor of Top of the World News? And the answer is no. And anybody who's looking to work for Top of the World can probably take that as assurance. Sally. I took a journalism course when I was a junior in high school. Does that count? No, the question was, have I ever done anything like this? And the answer is really no. Oh no, I was worried this is going to come up. So how has my project influenced my future, or potentially influenced my future? I am definitely interested in doing writing about science and environmental work in some form of magazine or editorial context. I'll be taking some time this summer to kind of volunteer and reconsider and obviously finish up some stuff with Top of the World. But it's definitely made me think about getting more into writing and journalism as a potential, at least, side gig. Matthew. I don't know about that, but. So Matthew's asking about kind of the history of journalism and kind of the context within Western. So I've been curious about this myself. And I know there used to be a minor here. I think it was gotten rid of about 10 years ago. And there's been a whole succession of like Gunnison Country Times editors as advisors to the newspaper, and a lot of help from the local community and from alumni. And that's something that I would like to get back to is connecting more with our alumni. And I've been interviewing a lot of them as part of like historical editors series and kind of trying to figure out what the paper was like, back in their day. So one of the most interesting little tangents is that the Top of the World budget in 1973 was $22,000 per year. And in 2022, it's $16,000 per year. So that's a pretty big decrease in real dollars. But ultimately, I believe that there are tentative plans to bring the journalism minor back, which I think would be a fantastic outlet for Top of the World and a natural collaboration. And then there's the creative writing program, which has, I believe, a publishing like subsect or track to it. And that's something that I'm going to be looking into this summer as an option for collaboration.
With that, we have to move on to our next panelist.
Cool. So now Demetra is going to talk about her project with the Wonderland Nature School.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Demetra one more time, and my project is called Nature-Based Pedagogy and Outdoor Space Design for Wonderland Nature School. I'm just going to start out by giving an overview of the problem that my project aims to solve. So due to the structured nature of traditional education, time spent in free play has decreased by 50%. And this is problematic because children learn through play, and they're actually losing their desire and ability to engage in free play. This is leading to many developmental problems, including difficulty paying attention, controlling emotions, balancing, decreased strength and endurance, increased aggression, and weakened immune systems. So I wanted to share this quote from Richard Louv, who is a well-known journalist and author. Nature deficit disorder describes the human costs of alienation from nature, among them diminished use of the senses, attention difficulties, and higher rates of physical and emotional illness. So the good news is there's a growing body of research pointing to many solutions to this problem. And these solutions can range anywhere from forest school, where children spend all day, every day outdoors, to having more green space and trees by a school and having windows where students can look out to see that. In the middle can be nature-based education or just increasing your own child's time spent outdoors. Most of the research is focused on increasing attentional capacity since ADHD has become so prevalent within our children and school system. So born of this research and the passion of some amazing women in the Valley is Wonderland Nature School. So this amazing project started about 3 years ago when one of the community schools was going to close down, and some parents got together and negotiated with the owner to stay open until they were able to find a new space to open a new school, Wonderland. And so my amazing community sponsor, Taryn Mead, started looking for a space. And one day she was checking out the Lazy K property to see if it would be a feasible space to build and open a new school on, when she noticed construction happening across the street at the old memory care unit at the senior center. So she walked across the street and found somebody to start asking questions to. The questions turned into a discussion, and over the year, a partnership was born between Gunnison Valley Health and Wonderland Nature School. So Gunnison Valley Health contributed $800,000 for renovations of the old memory care unit. And at the same time, those parents I talked about earlier raised $200,000 for materials and furniture and worked towards opening the school, writing their mission and vision, and figuring out what they wanted it to look like. So they came up with the beautiful vision. Wonderland aims to work together as a community of teachers and families to create a culture of learning, fostering social equity, ecological awareness, and critical thinking. I came onto this project in May of 2021, and during the project initiation stage, I met with my stakeholders, and we determined that I would be a good fit to design the outdoor spaces for the school and put them together, and then later develop the nature pedagogy and curriculum. So during the planning process, I was given my budget of $50,000 and determined the scope, the schedule, and did my due diligence on preschool regulations for outdoor spaces, which can get quite convoluted because they're very much up to interpretation by whoever the licensing regulator is in your area. And so I decided to use a Trello board as my project management tool because of the nature of the project. As far as execution, I got my materials from a local landscaper, Dario Elliott, and put the spaces together. And once kids were in the school, it was time to start putting together the curriculum. And this was kind of an iterative process with the monitoring stage because of the nature of the school. We observed how the children were reacting and then went back and adjusted based on them. Here's my Trello board. Like I said before, I chose this tool because everything in education is highly uncertain, especially in early childhood, because you just don't know how the kids are going to react to a space. So I wanted something to reflect that environment and thought that this was a great tool to do so. So here's me moving about 40 cubic yards of wood chips. I logged a lot of hours during this project. My mentor made me say that. Here on the left are the materials that Dario helped me make for the space. And this was really cool because there were a lot of end of life willows on the property, and you can't really have those on a playground because if there's a windstorm or heavy snow, they'll break and create a hazard. So we had to take those trees down, but we ended up using them as materials on the actual playground. So everything was very localized, cutting down on the environmental footprint of production. And here's the final spaces up here. This is the Magic Forest. It's the preschool playground. In the middle is a climbing structure. And then you can just see some loose parts, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And then on the left is the toddler playground, which is the same concept, but scaled down to a more developmentally appropriate level for 1- and 2-year-olds. So once there were students in the school, that's when I got to work learning about the Reggio Emilia and nature-based pedagogies. This means that at least 30% of the day must be spent outdoors. All the curriculum is nature-centric and child-led. This differs a lot from traditional education, and this was a big learning curve for me because I do come from a background of traditional early childhood education and wasn't familiar with these structures. So I did a lot of research and made my final deliverable, which is a handbook to aid other teachers when they come to work at the school, to help them learn how to be a practitioner and do so successfully. So this picture is what we call loose parts play at the school, and I took it about a month ago. I was asking my students what they were noticing now that the seasons were changing, and there was a lot of talk about snow melting and ice melting, but the main thing that they were really excited about was birds. So knowing that and making my observations and learning their interests, I follow what we call an emergent curriculum. And this means that we develop our lessons and curriculum based off of the students' interests in the moment, rather than having a whole year of curriculum written. And so we create projects, and a project can last anywhere from a few days to a week to a month to a whole year. It really just depends on how long your students are interested in the subject. Mine are still interested in birds, so a month later, I'm still trying to come up with bird stuff. As far as the outdoor space goes, the children weren't really sure how to interact with it when they first went out there. They had never been on a playground that didn't have manufactured equipment. And so there were a lot of complaints of boredom and that there were no toys and a lot of standing around for the first month. So I was a little bit worried, but my research came through and proved right. And shortly after we opened, I started to see an increase in imaginative play. So this top right photo here, they're doing this, if you're familiar with the Wheel on the Bus song. So that's actually their bus, and they take it anywhere from the bank to get a lollipop to the moon and everywhere in between. It's pretty fun to see them on that bus. And here's them utilizing those loose parts that I mentioned earlier. And this was a critical component of the playground design because I wanted the students to be able to shape the space to how they wanted to play on it. So here they're taking them and creating a fort, but they'll do things like create a circle to sit around, or they'll roll them down hills or move them however they want within the space. And then this last photo is just demonstrating an increased interest in nature. So they're looking for bugs with a magnifying glass and binoculars. So all of this is the result of child-led free play, and it has so many benefits, but my favorite one is an increase in interpersonal skills. So they're much less reliant on teachers to help solve conflicts and are learning really critical skills that they can carry with them through life to be successful. I just wanted to share a few more pictures. This one, they're on an airplane, but I can't remember where they were going. I think there was a lot of deliberation about it. A few people got mad. This middle picture is another loose part. It's water play, which is cool because it also makes mud, which is a crowd favorite. And then finally, this picture shows the development of gross motor skills, which happens much easier in natural environments than manufactured ones. Here they're digging in the dirt on the right. Here I think were trying to find a high point to throw an airplane off of. They've gotten really creative with making their own toys and figuring out what to do. And then finally searching for more bugs. Thank you so much. I want to do a special thank you to my community sponsor, Taryn Mead. She's been such a huge support to me throughout this project. And then my coworker, Beryl Sandridge, who helps me with a lot of the physical labor of this project. Wonderland Nature School staff, Gunnison Valley Health, the Temple Hoyne Buell Foundation for funding the playground, my family and friends, the MEM faculty and staff, and my mentor, Rich. Rich. Yes. So the question was, were there any barriers when looking at licensing regulations? I had to do a lot of research into this because like I said before, it really depends on who your licensing regulator is, and the rules are very open-ended. So it was a little bit of my interpretation and a little bit of hers. And one barrier that we came up with was that we weren't allowed to have sticks on the playground, but we have moved through that rule through conversation and agreements of close supervision and rules around sticks. Emily? So Emily is asking about how we standardize this form of education. And the answer is that within the structure of Emergent Curriculum, because it is a larger structure, even though it very much relies on unstructured activity for the children, things naturally emerge that you'll find is structured within the curriculum of a traditional education system. So, for example, while we're doing our birds, I made a sensory table that I called Feed the Birds. And in it, I put little pipe cleaners that I cut up to look like worms. And so we would count the pipe cleaners to feed the bird. And that's how we incorporated math into that activity. And then alphabet and everything else also emerges in that way. Scott? Papa? There were even times I didn't want to be outside, but we are very careful about the language that we use around kids because it is hard to be outside in these extreme weather conditions here. So we only used positive language and then made sure that everyone had proper equipment. I know everyone here is probably familiar with the term, there's no bad weather, only bad equipment. So we just made sure everyone had their snowsuits and was prepared, and we did spend 30% of the day outside all winter.
Brett on Zoom would like to know, are there lessons you've learned about nature play that you believe apply to other areas of society outside of early childhood education?
Yeah, I think that even as adults, we kind of lose our ability to play, and that is such an important part of being a resilient and creative individual. So I think that even for me during the course of this project, I noticed that my mental health was a lot better while I was engaging in these activities with the kids, because we too can benefit from unstructured programming and being outside.
And with that, we'll move on to our next panelist.
Please welcome Jenna.
Hello. Hello, everybody. My name's Jenna Kelser, and today I'm going to talk to you about my project, Upcycling in the Circular Economy in Engineering Design. As a society, we're increasingly disassociated from the world around us when it comes to the sustainability and environmental impacts of our decisions. When people throw things in the recycling bin, we think we are saving the world from the plastic problem, but what we don't realize is that a lot of the things we put in the recycling bin actually end up here. Actually, in 2019, when we stopped being able to export plastic waste to China, we exported the equivalent of 68,000 shipping containers of plastic waste to developing countries that did not have the infrastructure to take care of these materials properly. My journey with my MEM project began trying to solve this problem, a problem that has been really approached by many different angles. One of the angles that I found super promising was an organization called Precious Plastic. They're an open source upcycling community based out of the Netherlands that demonstrates on a small scale how upcycling can be helpful to a local community. They provide details on how to grind, melt, and inject plastic to create things like these earrings over here that you can then sell back to your community or give back to your community and kind of cut off the having to export plastic waste in the first place. Inspired by Precious Plastic and many other organizations, I was fortunate enough to partner with the Rady School of Computer Science and Engineering to work towards making a difference. Working with Jennifer Blacklock, Dr. Bronkhall, and Dr. Espejo, I figured out that the school was interested in taking on a project like this, but the real question for me was where to start with that. After a lot of research into the end of life of materials and plastic upcycling, I came to the conclusion that we really need to completely reframe the way we think about waste. In addition, my research showed me a recent study by the National Science Foundation stating that engineering graduates not only need skills in engineering, but they also need the soft skills in communication and collaboration that are required for leadership and project management. So since there was a need for planting this seed of plastic upcycling and kind of start the movement of this project, as well as expanding soft skills in the School of Engineering, I decided to use my communication and collaboration skills to create the project Upcycling in the Circular Economy in Engineering Design. And I wrote curriculum for a freshman engineering design class, Engineering 131, Introduction to Engineering Design. So this project really informed sustainability and engineering curriculum. And to do so, I taught 2 classes, as well as created scripts and materials for professors to use in the future. The curriculum asks students to educate themselves about plastic upcycling, as well as ideas central to the circular economy, while building on some of the design challenges that the students were already doing. The precious plastics ideology was utilized to teach students that designing things that do not have an end of life is actually possible, and encourage them to take system thinking into their career. The second part of the curriculum focused on the circular economy following research by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation that emphasized that the circular economy really challenges you to consider waste and pollution as design flaws. And as you can imagine, when you're in engineering design, that's a really important and life-changing concept to consider. So starting at the source, this curriculum showed engineering design students different ways of thinking by explaining that recycling begins at the end of a product's life cycle, and it is possible to design goods that actually don't have an end of life in the beginning of their creation. To incorporate ideas into the class structure, I showed them devices like this and asked them what they were. So I wanted to ask you guys if you had any idea what this device does on the screen. You just shout it out. What? to chop stuff up. Yeah, and actually when I showed them this, I hadn't given them an introduction to precious plastic yet. So there was lots of really interesting ideas like a meat grinder and different things like that, that they really started, using their imaginations and thinking about that. But then I explained, it's a plastic shredder. So this is part of precious plastic. They show you like schematics on how to build things like this on a small scale. And this is just one of the machines that put the plastic in the top and it shreds it into tiny pieces so it can be melted down and made into other things. I then proceeded to ask them these 5 questions, and then we talked about it for a long time. It was really interesting to work with freshman engineering students and have an open discussion with them about these things. I had to emphasize multiple times that, we're all just having a conversation about this and they don't need to raise their hand. We can just kind of talk about it. And it was kind of a change of perspective for them. But I also introduced the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I know a lot of you are familiar with that. The 17 goals to transform our world. But it was really to encourage them to consider these goals when they're designing things in the future. I also assigned them homework to start thinking more deeply about these goals and how they can apply in engineering. I asked them how they thought the devices could be improved and to apply at least one of the sustainable development goals to each of those improvements. I also gave them extra credit if they designed for inclusivity. They seemed really excited about this when we came back for the next class. This little word cloud here shows you some of the main words in their answers for their homework assignment. Some of my favorites were attaching a crank or a bicycle so that it didn't have to be plugged into the grid, making them affordable by upcycling motors, like things from a treadmill, instead of having to buy all new parts to make these machines, making it easy to take apart so it could be transported around to people who don't have the ability to access stuff like this. And then one of my favorites was making them affordable in a way and make them in a way so that you could mold prosthetics so that people could get cheaper access to things like that, because those are very expensive and necessary in people's lives. Follow-up survey showed that 80% of the students were interested in learning more about this, and 94% said they wanted to see a plastic upcycling workspace like this in the Rady building. So implementing this curriculum showed that these students really did benefit from an interdisciplinary class that brought ideas into their curriculum going beyond the traditional engineering curriculum and education. Some of their favorite things about the workshop were getting to think on a larger, more real perspective. The funniest one, well, the most awesome one in my opinion, was a lot of them said they were surprised that their peers cared about the environment and sustainability, and it was really inspiring to them. They liked working with a team to solve problems instead of just doing their math homework alone. Some of them were really surprised to learn that it was possible to design things in a circular fashion in the first place, and they were really excited about that, and just generally learning about a bunch of facts about recycling and all that fun stuff. They shared that they learned it is important to think about a product's purpose after use, to consider the ethics of a project when they're designing, and that there's several different ways to approach a problem, which was really cool to hear. So upcycling and the circular economy in engineering design was designed to be continually taught as a part of Engineering 131's Introduction to Engineering Design. In agreement with the professors in the Rady School, the curriculum will be taught in the coming years, and the education provided through the MEM partnership with Engineering 131 will give at least 25 or more students every semester the ability to make impacts like this in the class and throughout their careers. And following this curriculum, the students gain the ability to think about upcycling in the circular economy and continue to think about pollution as a design flaw. I'd really like to thank the students in Engineering 131 for being open to talk about things like this. They were really, really excited about it. And I was also working on some other things while here in the MEM program. So I also provided materials to apply for the Colorado Recycling Resources for Economic Opportunities grant for people to apply for this in the future, and gave these students kind of planted the seed for them to be excited about this. You know, they're freshmen, they could build some of these machines as their capstone project, and there's all sorts of opportunities even for first year MEM students if they're interested in this. I'd also like to thank Professor Holly Broncall and Hector Espejo, and the director of the Rady School, Jennifer Blacklock, and my mentors, Kate Clark and Rich Stromberg. Thank you. Any questions?
I know your project has evolved a lot since you presented at the August intensive. Could you explain a bit how you adapted your project to what it is today?
Yeah, so I had, in that, what you're talking about there, I had really big goals and ideas to actually implement one of these precious plastic workshops in the Rady building. And I worked to write that grant that I just mentioned, and worked with lots of people in the school and everything, but everyone got so excited about precious plastic that there's actually a lot of interest around campus. And the school decided that they wanted to apply for this grant next year. So I'm going to be handing that off, and hopefully they're going to add lots of really cool projects to that grant and ask for more money, because it does give the opportunity. I can't remember exactly, but you can ask for a lot more money than I was proposing to ask for this workshop. So hopefully someone can take that on and continue this work. I was working on this curriculum kind of with that, so I just kind of thought that I would showcase the work I did with this curriculum for you. Yes. Well, I think it's really helpful to have kind of I don't want to say backup, but your project can be lots of different things at once, and you could end up kind of showcasing all of that or just a part of that, and it's all super beneficial. Also, it sounds like from listening to everyone's presentations that their projects have changed a lot. So it's just good to be open to that and excited for like other opportunities, and not get upset about, losing whatever opportunity you had, because like for me, the opportunity was really not lost, because people are still, I got people really excited about this, and they are going to continue working on it in the future. So the question is, did I identify interest in engineering be taught to NVS class and vice versa? Is that right? I didn't specifically talk to anyone about classes being taught in the different departments, but the engineering students were kind of like surprised by how interested they were in these types of topics. So I think that they would be interested in doing something like that, or, having the opportunity to take different types of classes. Yeah.
And with that, we'll move on to our last presentation of the day.
Okay, I'll hand the mic over to Angel.
Everyone, my name is Angel Padilla. Unlike my colleagues here, my project focus on education, but not in a school, not in a program, not in the classroom. My project goes toward in the communities. So this is why I'm here to present my MEM project, environmental education interaction model between the U.S. Forest Service and communities surrounding El Yunque National Forest. So this project seeks to assess and know the community surrounding a forest or in the SIMA area. That's mean the community interface resource management area. To generate opportunities and solutions based on the land management plan and on the forest co-management concept to serve as a reference tool for the Forest Service personnel. The purpose of the projects are to assess and know better the communities, enhance community engagement. When I say engagement, from the community with the Forest Service and with the Forest Service with the communities. So develop a reference tool for environmental education, and most important, support the land management plan. For this project, I use a methodology based on 3 phases. The first one was to identify the communities. I select communities in the SIMA area by NERBI, but also I select randomly communities with any criteria, which that I proceed to the second phase that was to learn. The objective of this phase was to know the needs, interests, opinion, knowledge, using a questionnaire, informal interviews and conversation, this kind of interaction. With that, I proceed to the final phase of this project, that is to develop in where I'm still working. I'm working on a report that is going to contain a description of the data obtained. I'm going to quantify this qualitative data, use coding because I have open question. I'm going to make recommendation and proceed to establish the best interaction, the best practice to interact with the community. And with that, I'm going to produce what is my final product, the interaction model tool. Here is the community that I work on this project. This is the east of the island of Puerto Rico. All the community that I work is around the green area that is the El Yunque National Forest. In this map is the representation of the participant that I obtained per municipality. In this one is the specific location of this participant, that it's mean that I obtained 30 different participants from different communities around the area, focusing more of the participants in the north of the forest. So to learn, I use a questionnaire with 11 questions on Spanish. Also, I establish conversations, informal interviews with the participant with the purpose to get this background, this context, to have a better understanding of all the response that I obtained. To develop in the part that I'm still working, I'm going to produce an interaction model tool that is going to be guide to environmental education opportunities, but most important is going to be based on the land management plan and the co-management concept. I bring an example of the question that I used for the questionnaire. Every question is an example of what I seek to learn of the participant and the communities. As the first example, we have a question based to know the needs of the community. In this case, most of the participants indicate that the economy was the aspect more affected in the daily life for environmental events. That it was another question that I made on the project as an example: earthquakes, hurricanes, landslides. With that is this kind of question is demonstrate the opportunity that the Forest Service have to continue working with organizations to empower the communities and this person. Also, with all the data obtained, I illustrate the data per municipality, since as we are a small island, we have very notable difference in all the corners by culture, by political aspect. By that is a good way to demonstrate the difference from north to south to east to west. And at the final day, this is what I want to bring a product that indicate how to work with every community around the forest. Also, I use a question based on to know the opinions. In this case, it's a question to know the interaction the Forest Service are carrying out in the communities. And most of the participants don't know anything from the Forest Service, don't have an idea. But with that, it's a big opportunity for the Forest Service to figure out, and for me to make this to improve this interaction with the community. With this purpose, I made this kind of question to know the interest of the communities. So this question is basically represent a good opportunity for the Forest Service, since they have a solution here. Basically, most of the participants want the Forest Service in the community, want to interact with the Forest Service. They want workshops, they want open houses. So this basically one of the future recommendation for the Forest Service in this kind of project. Also, I made question related to measure the knowledge of the participant of the community related to environmental topics that are important for the land management plan. So this is going to help the future development of environmental education and lessons. So by knowing how much the people know and what are the interests, it can be a key to carry out an effective environmental education in these communities. So with all this data I obtained, I can summarize that the people want the Forest Service in the community. They want to interact, and the Forest Service have a big opportunity to go to the community, to invite this community for the forest. Also, other aspect is to Forest Service need to carry out education on this community, focusing on what is protection and conservation of the natural resources, since this resource, or the resource of the community, are the same of the forest, and the forest resource are the same of the community. By that, they can promote what is co-management. And also, other Forest Service have a big opportunity to go beyond the Sirma area, since this forest is the forest of all Puerto Rican. I have many people on the island that feel proud, and they feel this sense of place of the forest and want to be part of the management, and also represent opportunity for the people to understand what is the Forest Service is doing on the island, and what is the future of this forest. Future action for this project is basically I will be finishing the final product for August 2022. It is open for suggestion from the community to do a more practical final product as possible, and also assess possibilities for the project expansion to go more beyond the Sirma, or to make a publication. And also this project is what it is, because I have a really good time doing this project. I feel that I grew as a student, but more far I grew as a person, since I'm so proud. I'm so proud from where I am. I'm working with community, for the community. It's represent something bigger for me. And also I want to invite other students, other entities to work on this kind of project in Puerto Rico on the forest. Since we need solution, the correct word is actions. The true meaning of that is the MEM program of Western Colorado University. I want to spread my gratitude for everybody that support me during this journey. and especially to Dr. Micah Russo to support me and and guide me during all the project. I want to recognize my commenter, or my sponsor, Dr. Pablo Gerandi Roman, to support me since day one, to motivate me to be a better person to go for more. Also to the Haley Grant to support me on the project. This is possible for the Haley Grant. And also it's not only help me, help the people that I represent on this project, the Forest Service personnel, my family, my sisters, and my girlfriend. So this is my project. If they have questions, I'm here. Go, Max. So the question is, what is my favorite memories of the community? So my favorite, I had a lot of memories, but it was fun to go to the communities, eat something, bought something on a restaurant, or how they name it in Puerto Rico, chinchorro. Is like has they sell fried food, and talk with the people, have this kind of interaction, motivating me, how these people trust on me, how they help me in all the way. So this kind is the the most memorable thing that I have from this project.
Brett on Zoom would like to know, what unique opportunities or challenges did you face working in the only national forest in Puerto Rico?
So we had as to start, we had a lot of challenge. As we are in Puerto Rico, we are our sociopolitical condition is very different than to be in a state. So to start to how the people see the federal government is a big challenge for initial. But this challenge, I work with this challenge, expressing that I'm doing this for the community, not for the forest service. This from the community for the community. Question, can you repeat the question again? So the question is this declaration, how I see the declaration is more a negative or positive in the forest management. That's right. Okay, so by the answer that I obtained, most of people culturally, the people don't use it to recreate. It's very peculiar culture, but the management they are trying to is moving in the positive way because they are trying to get involved these people to use their land. Like it's not like the forest service is not the owner. It's they are trying to promote what is co-management. And so this can be positive in the way that these people can use the forest.
William on Zoom would like to know if the forest allows any extractive activities such as logging, mining, or ranching.
At this moment, I don't recognize that, but the one activity that I discovered during my project is what most of the people use the land for agriculture, right? To have wild crops. It's a ñame. It's a fruit. So, but as this project was created to timber, but as we are tropical, so the tree took 100 years to grow. So this was the principal purpose. Today the forest is what is by that.
And Micah would like to know, do you have any specific ideas for future MEM projects working with the U.S. Forest Service in Puerto Rico?
Yeah. So this project is the project that I made is the base for the improvement of environmental education of the land management, the new land management plan. So future projects can be to measure if this development or lessons or program works. Also, other projects can be to go more deep to the community, go into the development of environmental education. So this is the kind of project that can work for the future to continue this line that I started.
And now we can move on to the full panel Q&A.
So the question was, based on our projects, what changes would we make to the current MEM curriculum? No, this program loves constructive criticism. Right. Mhm.
Well, I was kind of inspired by one of my questions. It could be really productive to collaborate more between different schools. I think that would improve the curriculum a bit.
I think it'd be cool. I know this already happens with like nature writing and some of these different collaborations, but to collaborate more with the creative writing program and some of the writing professors. I know there's a lot of writing professors over there. It'd be cool to do some environmental writing and more like kind of science communication in this program.
I would also say just expanding the curriculum in general to include things. A lot of the curriculum is focused on the IPLM track, so involving more of the other emphasis, like the community, so sustainable and resilient communities and global sustainability tracks could use a lot more curriculum development, in my opinion.
As I was a distant student, I found curriculum so complete, but it can go for the future to improve, to explore other culture. So this is the only thing that I recommend to change. But for real, I grow as a person with all the classes, so it's very complete.
Mhm. Yeah, so the question was, did I come upon anything in my research about helping students with sensory issues if they can't handle like dirt or mud? And I didn't come across that research per se, but I did come across it in my interactions with the students. And usually it just involves like a conversation and acceptance of that, because you can't force somebody to do something they don't want to do. And that's something like I really integrated within my classroom, was autonomy and choice to participate in any activities. Thank you for that question. And Jeanette?
Yes, the question was if I learned something new about the forest. Yeah, the most important that I learned was the history. This is the more that I, at this time that I can say. Also, the culture that persists around the forest, how the people use the forest. I think that it was the most important that I learned the value of the persons. I,
So there is an innovation challenge in the engineering school, and some of them this past semester actually built a very small scale version of some of these machines to create upcycled ski poles. So they are very excited about this concept. I think those are great ideas.
Yeah, so the question was if I've been inspired by any games or adventurous ideas by the kids. Yes, all the time. I'm trying to think of a specific one. Every day is just like so fun and new and really exciting because the things that we're doing are it's completely new for somebody who's only been on the planet for like 3 years. So that's a hard question because I'm constantly inspired by that. I would say I love engaging in the imaginative play with them. I find that really fun and challenging, but it's also like unlocked another part of myself that I had forgotten after growing up. So thank you for that question.
Angel mentioned that there isn't a large amount of recreational use in the national forest. Alex is curious if you think that it is something to expand or if the national forest should be focused more on preservation and conservation.
can you repeat the question again?
You mentioned that there isn't a lot of recreational use in the forest, and he's curious if you think that's something they should expand to or if they should be focused more on preservation and conservation.
I think they need to focus more on the it can be a balance, but they need to focus more on to bring the opportunity for the recreation to for for enjoyment of the community, to give opportunity to the use of the forest, to do business with the forest, the forest product or tourism around the forest. So it can be a balance, but we need to to bring this invitation for the community to make use of the forest and not only focus like on the preservation, since it's the land of the all use.
Yes. So the question is whether a collaboration could exist between the use of recycled materials to build new things within the school I hope I phrased that right. I think we can both answer this, but on my end, I think that would be a really cool opportunity, but don't necessarily know if it's developmentally appropriate for the age group of the students. However, even though everything in the school is nature-based, including the materials, there's staples within a school like blocks and Legos and stuff that constantly needs to be replaced since they break it. And so a collaboration could exist there. And I think they would be interested in seeing the process, but just couldn't developmentally understand it yet. So I'll pass it to Jenna to answer.
Yeah, I think it would be awesome if these machines were used to make materials like Legos and stuff for different schools. That would totally be possible. When you said creative, I was thinking, I always thought it would be amazing to create kind of more like an art workspace with these machines. I'm also an artist and a ceramicist, and I really enjoy sculpting things. This idea was really exciting to me to like create sculptures with it. So I think it could definitely be expanded more in an interdisciplinary way, definitely.
Yes, the question is about kind of the environmental impacts online versus in print. I think, yeah, we definitely did talk about like how we want to use print. And honestly, one of the big limiting factors for us was that nobody in our staff had ever made a print magazine before. Our April Fool's thing was the first thing we had all designed, and we use Canva, and it takes a lot of time. It's a big draw on resources, and it's easy to put stuff on WordPress. But I do think there is an argument to be made not to print weekly. I would think that moving forward, Top of the World could maybe print a couple times a semester as kind of a compromise, get it out there and link to the website, use it as a marketing tool. There is still something to holding a magazine or a newspaper in your hands and leafing through it and seeing the photos on the page. But I mean, yeah, there's definitely a balance of resources and costs and environmental concerns that play into that. And definitely stuff that we're thinking about and will continue to think about.
So the question was, in one of the graphs, why the most of the short amount of participants answered the categorize the interaction poor or bad. So it's a sick cultural aspect, as you mentioned. It's a big challenge to change this mind. It's mentioned these people see the Forest Service as the owner. So this is my land. Don't trespass. So this can be one, and also the other is that it goes to a community one time of the year. Also, people want the Forest Service in the community. So it's basically, and the Forest Service is short of personnel. They have a lot of work, so they focus more on the forest and also more with the past of the Hurricane Maria into 2017. That most of the focus was on the infrastructure of the forest, on the roads, on the buildings. They don't have time to grow to community, and this was probably one of the causes. But the most important, I think, that is by culture. Yeah, it is a big opportunity for Forest Service, more if for the Junction National Forest moving for the co-management, and so it's the big opportunity. No? So in my case, my background is on agriculture. I have experience working with community, but it's very different than the experience that I had before. My case as being exposed to a new community that I don't know. Also, it was everything that I made, the skill that I acquired during this project. It was possible. Thankfully to my mentors, Michael Russo, and especially to Pablo Gerandi to guide me, and show me the correct way to be success on this project.
So I just like learning. Even when I'm not in school, I'm always learning because I love reading. And so it really felt very natural to do this project and learn things on the side to what we were learning during the curriculum. The second part of your question. Oh, now that I'm an expert, I will continue to become an expert in other things.
I also really love learning. I resonate with what you just said, definitely. I have somewhat of a background in the more technical side of it. It's not in engineering, but I have background in climate science. So I have a lot of the, like calculus and stuff like that. It wasn't just like super, what the heck are you talking about? But I did have to go to a couple of the classes and kind of see how they were learning and what they were learning, because I didn't want it to just be some random information thrown in their face. So I definitely spent a lot of time learning about their curriculum. And now that I'm an expert, I guess I will continue to share the information that I know with people around me so that they can learn that as well.
I definitely would not consider myself to be an expert in journalism or science communication, but I think that and I would be hesitant to use the word journalist as a self-descriptor, to be quite honest, because for me, that word holds a lot of weight and it means a lot, especially, when journalism is kind of under attack in a lot of different ways, financially and kind of ethically. But it's been fascinating for me and I'm sure if I went back and looked at some of the stuff I wrote in September versus the stuff I was writing in April or writing now, it's been a pretty big switch. And I read a fair amount of magazines and newspapers and stuff. And so that was like definitely kind of a guiding light. And Professor Tony Todd definitely was there for some key pointers on some more difficult situations that came up. And also just talking to former top of the world editors and good old fashioned Google searches for AP style and various different things. But I definitely feel like I've learned a lot about how to convey, science information, project information, environmental information, sports, and have gotten a lot of experience, but by no means an expert.
I really like those answers. I wasn't intending to put you on the spot, but I think one of the things that we really try to cultivate in the program is that spirit of learning. And I love the notion that you are curious individuals, and that's part of what brings you into this environment. And I hope that that serves you well as you move forward and continue to be open to learning and wherever your pathway next takes you. So audience, please join me in welcoming this wonderful cohort into our family of Master in Environmental Management students. Develop a new rhythm here, sorry. Brian Wagenaar, Master of Environmental Management. Stand up. Stand up. Congratulations. Jenna Kelser, congratulations. Biddle, congratulations. And Angel Padilla, please stand. Let's give them one big round of applause. Thank you all, and thank you all for being here today. Remember, we have another 2 panels tomorrow starting at 8:30 tomorrow morning. Please do join us and join us on Zoom as well. Also, a big, huge gratitude to everyone who's helped to make this forum take place, all of their work and labor, our timekeepers, our announcers, all of you for being a part of this. Just our big thanks for that. And also a reminder to please join us in celebrating the end of the semester and the wonderful work of all of our graduates and our seniors. Our seniors in the Clark School of Environment Sustainability will be sharing their capstone posters tomorrow at 4 o'clock at the ICE lab on the patio outside there. So do come join us, give support to the Clark School family again, and celebrate the end of the semester with us. Thank you all.